been pretty intense 4 hours, so we're almost done. All right. We can take the coyote out of the city, but can we take the city out of the coyote? Really what I'm referring to here is the management options we have for dealing with problem coyotes or dealing with coyote conflict. And this really refers to lethal and non-lethal options. So I'm going to talk a lot about that. And then I'm going to give my opinion on what I would do. So, but first I'm going to talk a little bit about selection and learning pressures and how that relates to conflict coyotes. So you guys have seen this slide, probably sick of it, but it's good for demonstrative purposes. We've got this kind of scenario occurring in the Denver metro area. A lot of pressures pushing up this bold, aggressive behavior to the point where we have coyotes attacking people. It is a rare occasion, but it does happen. And it's a product of this, it moved the whole population up in terms of their behavior. To the point where they're now we have individuals that are popping up that are real extreme problems. So what do we do as pushback? Jerry talked a lot about what happens when coyotes attack people. And that's when we get this pushback. So is that enough to control and manage conflict in the Denver metro area? And if we're happy with where we are now, with occasional individuals bubbling up and causing problems, then I think the answer is yes, we're in a good place. What I think we need to think about is what is our goal? Is this okay? Or do we want it down to where coyotes attacking pets is less of is a less common event? And how do we reverse this trend? How do we push back so we push this this behavioral issue down? So we're going to talk about some strategies. I'll give opinions on them, talk about what we know about them. And the first is what I'll call proactive lethal removal of individuals. And this would be, the goal would be to strategically remove bold individuals. You wouldn't wait for a problem animal to develop. You'd have a kind of a continual low-level removal, and you'd have somebody judging coyote behavior. And you would say, that's a bold individual, and that's a shy individual, and we'll take this bold individual out. You're not trying to impact the population, you're removing specific individuals. I'm not necessarily promoting this, I'm just proposing this as an idea. We don't really know much about this as a management tool. It may have merit, but we need more information. I know there's municipalities utilizing this technique, but I don't know any details. And it's these details that would be important. It would be the tracking of conflict over time in a reliable way to where we could say anything about this. And we just don't have that information. We can do reactive lethal control of problem animals. And so the goal, again, in this case is to remove identified problem individuals. This is probably the main thing that's occurring in the Denver metro area in terms of lethal removal. It's the identification of a real problem individual saying that it's past a behavioral threshold and we go in and remove it. In some cases, the problem with this is that you end up killing a lot of coyotes because you haven't got the right individual. And folks from Broomfield are familiar with that, where during the event when kids were being bitten by a coyote, it took a lot of time before the right individual was removed. And so this is a hard part of this technique. How effective is reactive lethal control? Activist group will claim lethal control has not reduced the number of incidents in the past and is not an answer for the future. And what they argue is that, well, and this, by the way, is a graph of all the removals of problem individuals from 2009 to 2014 performed by Parks and Wildlife Services, Department of Agriculture. what you see here is removals fairly low and then bumping up into maybe 7 to 10 animals removed per year. This was kind of an extreme event. Again, took a long time to get the right problem from the Broomfield, the Anthem area, so you end up with a lot more lethal control. This claim is false. The interesting question is, if you leave a problem individual out on the landscape, what happens? And the answer is you're going to have continual problems. You have to remove that problem individual. They would retort, well, let's focus on non-lethal instead of lethal strategies. So that moves us into reactive non-lethal strategies, and Mary Ann alluded to this. Can we take a problem individual, use non-lethal techniques to control the problem? The goal, again, is to change the behavior of the animal. You're going to use trained personnel. It's going to be a high-intensity effort, typically kind of low duration, and you're going to really try to change that individual's problem. Sometimes you use education to involve the public. A lot of times when this is in place, it's done by trained personnel. So how effective is this technique? We really only have anecdotes. This is a dangerous experiment to be performing, right? It's a hard experiment to really look at, and so we don't have a lot of good data on it. But we do have anecdotes from our community hazing study that Mary Ann talked about. It turned out in both Broomfield and in a site in Lakewood, we had a problem individual that 2 or 3 months after our experiment, we had to go in and remove an individual. So you could say, well, our efforts were not effective. We never really were able to control that individual that was causing a lot of conflict. And removal was the only answer. And once you remove that individual, problems go away. Same kind of thing happened in Boulder. You might be familiar with a few years ago, the coyote that was jumping out and biting people on the bike trail. They did a similar kind of hazing effort where they're trying to gauge the public. They had a lot of professionals out hazing, and for a while it worked, but eventually, it might be a month or two later, but eventually that coyote had to be removed lethally. So my contention would be that effectiveness of reactive non-lethal techniques is very, very limited. I would not recommend this. To what extent can we teach coyotes? These problem coyotes that are up in this upper level here, I think it's a lost cause for non-lethal techniques. So the better non-lethal methodology, I think, is using proactive non-lethal. Okay, so this is a different, the goal is suppression of not just problem individuals, but you're focusing on the whole population. It's a long-term effort. This isn't something you do for a couple weeks and then walk away. This is a continual effort. There's a big emphasis on education. And managers aren't the ones out there hazing necessarily. They may be demonstrating techniques, they may be training people, but expecting managers to employ hazing in their daily routine is way over the top. It's just not going to happen. They don't have time. They've got 100 other things to do besides haze coyotes. So to what extent can we teach coyotes? And maybe we should take some lessons from Cesar Millan. How to raise the perfect dog. We have to kind of change things, though. We need the anti-Caesar for coyotes. Okay. What does that look like? Probably something like this. How to Raise the Perfect Coyote by Mary Ann Bonnell, right? So teaching coyotes will require behavioral suppression. We can learn from our natural systems here. And here's a coyote biting the tail of a wolf. The wolf is digging into this den of a coyote and just doesn't put up with these coyotes, okay? People need to start acting a little bit more like wolves, all right? Mary Ann touched on a lot about this idea of harassment versus hazing. The goal cannot be harm coyotes. Okay? We cannot have that as part of the effort where we're actually physically hurting coyotes. The public won't accept that. It's not something that should be part of it. But how do we get to the point where we're having an impact in a non-lethal way on coyote behavior? I don't think we're there yet. I think it's an interesting question, and it's a difficult question, and almost undoubtedly involves education. Okay? So what would I do? My opinion on the current threshold where we are in Denver is this. I think we've let coyotes rise up too much. And in my opinion, has changed over the past few years. The first event that has helped form my opinion is that in 2009, Taylor Mitchell was killed by a coyote in Canada. And if you'd asked me before this event, will coyotes ever kill a person, I'd have said, no way. But this was very remarkable to me. And so after that event, you think, well, okay, that was a one-time thing. It's kind of a freak event. 2013, in the Denver metro area, we have a man attacked by 3 coyotes. This was a predatory attack. There's no way to look at it any other way. And you think about that and you say, we're at a place that is a bit dangerous, okay? Am I being a fear monger? I don't think so. I think I'm being a realist. I think we're up in this area where we have a population of coyotes that for the most part, 99% of them are not going to do this kind of behavior. But we've got this population and we've got this situation that allows occasional individuals to bubble up above that line. And if you want to see a big change in what managers do, it's to actually cross this line and have somebody killed by a coyote. And I don't think anybody wants to go there. Certainly, it would be a horrible event, but for managers, it would just force you to rethink how you manage coyotes. And it would probably mean a lot more coyotes are going to be killed. So how do we prevent crossing that kind of threshold? Here's what I would do. Again, put pressure on. Try to move that whole population down. And how do we do that? How do we reduce this sort of ability of coyotes to have this population that allows individuals bubbling up? Well, we lower what we consider is a threshold where we take lethal action. And so I would recommend 2 things. The first is, again, lower the threshold for reactive lethal control. I think our trigger points are a little bit too high. Waiting till a coyote attacks a person, I think, is a mistake. I would take action when we have coyotes that are approaching people with dogs on lead, that are chronic pet killers, that are really becoming a problem, getting a lot of calls. Again, these aren't necessarily things that are defined in a management plan. I think you need somebody that is smart about coyotes, that can judge a situation on a situation basis. But I do think lowering that trigger point where we take action, lethal control action, could be an important point or an important way to lower the issues we have in the Denver metro area. At the same time, I would set up a Denver metro area-wide state coordinator, education coordinator. And I'd have that person focused on proactive, non-lethal control. I'd have that person understand when is a good time to take lethal control. In this position, I would have cooperatively funded by all the municipalities, or as many municipalities as you could in the Denver metro area, perhaps with help from agencies, and perhaps with help from activist groups. What would that look like? Well, you'd probably hire Mary Ann Bonnell. And they would work very closely with city managers, she would, as well as wildlife managers. There are going to be cases when you make that determination, we got to remove this problem individual. You want that to be done in the most humane, efficient way possible. You need good people to do that. You need tools, as Jerry alluded to. Some of those tools are hard to use. Maybe we can change that. But having somebody that's savvy out in the field is very important. I'd also have that person integrating with people like Rick Sedbrook from Broomfield. Having people on the ground in each community that is really engaged in understanding what coyotes are doing, really aware of what coyotes are doing, observing coyotes on a daily or weekly basis. Having that kind of person is really valuable. Why is it valuable? It's valuable for a couple reasons. The first is that when you do have to make a determination, all right, we got to remove an individual, how do we reduce the collateral damage so we're not removing a bunch more coyotes? Well, it's understanding which individual is the problem, and it's being able to target that individual. Having someone on the ground that knows those coyotes is great. So if there's a way to encourage volunteers to, as we've done with the Citizen Science Program, people that are really engaged with knowing about coyotes and enjoy watching coyotes, having that type of person on the ground is really important. Having someone in the HD realm like Tara or Andrew, not necessarily involved on a daily basis or even a weekly basis, but there's a critical element here that I'll talk about here in a second, which is maintaining records of attacks or maintaining good records of pet attacks, human attacks, even encounters. I think we're doing a poor job of that. But there's ways that we can survey the public, and we know this, Andrew and I are working on this now, to where we can adjust the counts that come in from the public so we get a better idea of what the patterns are like. Are we pushing the number of conflicts down, or are they increasing? Understanding that's critical, and having someone in the human interventions realm is critical. Having a wildlife researcher involved, I don't think we need a study like we've done the past 4 years on a continual basis. I think what we need is somebody that understands experimental design, understands the importance of keeping good track of data to help advise, and that's probably the extent. So we can't manage what we don't measure. This comes back to, and this is if I leave a message at all, it's that we need to do a better job of managing conflict. Why is that? It's going to be the number of reports on pets through time that is going to be informative to whether you're effective as a manager. Are you effective by employing a non-lethal strategy? Are you effective at employing a lethal strategy? These are hard questions. The reason they're hard is because conflict's fairly rare. But if we track conflict through time in different municipalities and do it effectively, we're able to better understand whether we're being effective. So this coyote problem is kind of like whack-a-mole. You guys know that game, right? You knock down the animal and it comes up in another spot. It's coyote, having problem coyotes emerge in Denver is a very hard thing to predict. At this point, I don't think we can predict it. They pop up in different places and we're not able to understand why or where that's going to happen. So that's the reason we need to, first of all, have a lot of cooperation from different municipalities. We need consistent public records where we have periodic human dimension surveys that are able to adjust these records so we understand the true pattern of conflict and take advantage of management experiments. What do I mean by that? Broomfield may be doing something than Lakewood. Lakewood may be doing something different than Greenwood Village. And if we look across the Denver metro area, all these different municipalities may be doing different kind of things. So how do we take advantage of these sort of management experiments, and how do we learn from them? We have to track records of conflict across landscapes and across time. So a little bit of finger pointing. And this I'm doing in a way to try to be positive. What can we do? So to the municipalities, I would say be willing to cooperate. Can we come up with a way to contribute funding to a position like I described? And we need to encourage the development of people like Rick Sedbrook in Broomfield. To the activists, put your money where your mouth is. Is there a way that you could contribute funding for a person that runs a proactive educational effort? and not do these efforts independently on your own, but contribute to the broader effort and goal of reducing conflict in the Denver metro area. To Colorado Parks and Wildlife, help improve a conflict reporting and database management system. You guys are good at that, really good at that. And so can we do that with coyotes? And do that across the Denver metro area? To the general public, get smart, get involved. These are tough questions, though. Is it the public's responsibility to be hazing? These are hard questions I think Mary Ann can help figure out. To Wildlife Services, we're perfect, right? So we need to be more involved in the proactive non-lethal efforts. I'm pretty convinced of that. We need to be involved in developing this educational component to managing coyotes. We also have to help improve conflict reporting and database management. And I point that finger directly at me. I've got some good ideas on how to do that. Why don't we take a quick break? We'll set up this panel and we can do some questions.